Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Technique Talk, uh, brought to you here by Technique Lab, and I'm your host, if you want to say, David Riley. And we're here and we're happy to be here to look at Budapest 2023. The superheroes of athletics are on show over there in Budapest, and we're here to talk about some of the things that nobody else wants to talk about and to talk about some of the things that are happening over there in Budapest. Today was day two done and dusted. Lots of ups and downs. Not going based on lots of the predictions, but of course, we have to run the races. That's the only way we can issue the medals, not before, but when everybody takes a starter or show up in the field events, and then based on their performances, we issue those medals first, second, and third. But we're here, and as I said, lots of things have happened today. And I'm sure you had your own roller coaster, emotional roller coaster, with some of the ups and the downs, and you have your own reactions to some of the things. So feel free in the chat to just drop a few comments so that we can interact with some of those as well. But today we had lots of action on the track. We're up from really some ungodly hours, if you ask me, and want to look at things that happened. It was a busy day for us there on the track and in the field, and some of it, I hear the discussions and I see some of the things that are happening. But some really interesting things happened. We saw in the long jump, Ackelia Smith did not make it into the top 8 based on the fact that she was accredited with a jump that didn't really make it, and so she was actually given a jump of 6.49, which was her second attempt. She fouled her first attempt, and then she jumped 6.49, and then on the third attempt she was charged with a foul. And interestingly, Ackelia and her coach filed a protest for that particular jump. You might not have noticed it, but they filed a protest, and she was actually allowed to do 3 additional jumps with the top 8. So she was actually the 9th athlete that advanced to the finals, and she was given 3 additional jumps. Of course, if you look in the official results, you don't see those performances that she did, because they've actually somehow overturned the decision that was made. So if you check this out, we have here, and what they're using, let me back up a bit. They're using technology that they're using to determine whether the athlete has fouled or not. So the rules have changed somewhat, and the jump is fouled if the athlete breaks the plane of the vertical plane of the board. So there's no plasticine that you'd make an indentation, but there's a vertical plane right in front, right to the edge of the board, and that is what they're using. There's a little camera there, and it's used to detect the fact that the athlete has broken the plane and to what extent. So based on that, they actually usually, if the athlete breaks the plane, they will show up a red flag, or red, not really red flag, but there's a light, a green light and a red light, that the athletes would know whether in fact they fouled. So let's go back to this particular report. This is the official results of the long jump, and we're seeing here Ackelia Smith and her 3 attempts. So the first column, this column here with in this case the X, that shows that the jump fall, and then this is the offset, that plus 33.0. That tells you the distance the athlete was over the board using the same technology. How far over the board was she? And so she was over by 33 centimeters, I guess. Yeah, 30 centimeters. The second jump, and if you notice, all the athletes who have a foul, Jasmine Moore, plus 7.1. If you look at Germany, Luzola, the two X's, plus 9.1, plus 1.5, barely foul there. You go up to Esbali from Spain, her X here, plus 11.4. So, Ackelia, on her third attempt, was said to be over by plus 0.1. Right, so that's barely foul. That's not something you could see with your naked eye. And the photo that she was shown, actually, by the officials, was one where her spiked nails were already off the ground. So it would have been not when she made contact, but would have been slightly after she made contact. So, of course, she is disputing that in fact that was a foul because it wasn't, it did not break the plane of the board, and that is a bit unfortunate. What I understand is that from that jump, if she was indeed accredited with that jump, she probably would have been one of the medalists. So, Ackelia Smith out, didn't get to perform. She went in as a world lead, and of course that didn't materialize in terms of her jump and what she was accredited with for the competition. So they've actually revised the result, and they've taken that out, those jumps, those attempts, and they didn't actually tell her what the disputed distance, the distance of the disputed jump was or is, and so nobody knows. You know, when they just started to use the video distance measuring system, they used to actually have a site where you could go and look at the actual images taken by the video distance measuring system, and you could see for yourself what the distance was. Yeah, they've actually stopped that. I guess too many of us nerds were bombarding the site looking at those images, and they just kind of they no longer provide that. So you can't really tell what the distance was, or you don't see the images anymore, unfortunately. So Ackelia Smith, disappointment there for us. That's one of the downs. Definitely, we were expecting her to come through and make a big impact, and of course that was not to be. So we're moving on. You have to dust off and keep going. She has a triple jump coming up, and that should be another opportunity for her to do well in the black, green, and gold. So, in addition to that, some other ups and downs. There were some false starts today. False start in the women's 100 meters, and this is a very interesting case. False start in the women 100 meters, and that we want to look at. There was in heat number 5. There was a situation where with the athlete from Great Britain who was actually charged with a false start. The results show this is an interesting situation here. So Imani Lansiquot of Great Britain was disqualified after the event based on technical rule 16.8, which is a false start. The athlete was allowed to run on a protest. Now, this is a very interesting situation because I hear the commentators talking about running on a protest, and this is interesting that athletes are being allowed to run on a protest, and this is all rubbish. Athletes are not allowed to run on a protest. In fact, I'll talk about this. I went and checked the rules. I think I know the rules. And there's a lot of confusion with respect to the rules because persons just don't understand that the rules for false start are different for when you're using the false start system and when you're not, right? So when you're not using the false start system, you actually don't, they allow for you to run on a protest. But once the start information system is being used, the athlete cannot run on the protest. That is very important for us to understand. You can't run on a protest when the false start information system is being used. And I actually went and I checked it because I'm hearing these commentators talking about this thing, and I'm like, did something change that I don't know of? And I feel very uncomfortable about that. And I went and I downloaded the rules, and the rules are dated the 14th of August 2023. Today's what date? Yeah. So 6 days ago, the rules were updated, or the latest version of the rule book was released, and I have an electronic copy of that. But let me just show you why I think this information is not correct, which is being bandied about by these commentators. So running on a protest, it says if an athlete makes an immediate protest, this is a running or a walking event, against having been charged with a false start, the start referee, or if one is not appointed, in this case we do have a start referee, may, if they are in any doubt, allow the athlete to compete under protest in order to preserve the rights of all concerned. Competing under protest should not be allowed if the false start was indicated by a World Athletics Certified Start Information System, unless, for any reason, the start referee believes or determines that the information provided by the system is obviously inaccurate. Now, this is what the rule says. In fact, it goes on to say that when the start referee decides on an immediate oral protest made by an athlete or being charged with a false start, they have to consider all the available data, and in the case of a reasonable possibility that the athlete's protest may be valid, they should allow the athlete to compete under protest. After the race, a final decision must be taken by the referee, a decision that may be subject of an appeal to the jury. The referee should not normally allow an athlete to compete under protest if the false start has been detected by the start information system that appears to be working properly, or in cases where it is very clear by visual observation that the athlete has committed a false start and there is no valid reason to allow the protest. However, it is acknowledged that when the reaction time is close to the allowed limit, any movement could be hardly visible. In this case, in the opinion of the start referee, it would require further study of the technological evidence. The start referee may decide to allow the athlete to run under protest to preserve the right of the athlete. So that is the whole story right there. That whole thing about running under protest. You can't do it. It's not allowed, and they need to stop saying it. We're using the start information system at this meet, and it will be used. There's no way it's not going to be used, because this is the flagship meet for World Athletics. They are going to use all that equipment, and therefore there's no athlete who should be allowed to run under no protest. So, what is the situation? So here it is. So she was disqualified, and in fact, based on the reaction times, I recall when I was watching this, there are 3 reaction times that were faster than 0.1. There are 3 of them. There's lane 2, lane 3, and I think lane 8. They gave lane 3 a yellow card, and they disqualified lane 8 afterwards. Now, the reality is that more than one athlete can actually be charged with a false start in the same race. Because why? Because you're disqualified because your reaction is faster than the allowable limit. It's not because somebody else moved. You can't say because the other person moved, you also moved. That's not going to happen in 0.1 of a second. You would have initiated the movement from before. And therefore, you can't use that as an argument to say that because that person moved, I moved. You need more than 0.1 of a second to make that decision. So the false start is going to detect someone who actually has false started. All right, so that is a bit unfortunate, but that's how it works, and there's no way around that. So those ladies, well, one was actually thrown out, and the other was given a yellow card. You explain that to me. In any case, so I don't want to hear anybody talk about running on a protest. It's not allowed. It's not allowed. And, you know, these commentators need to do a little better than what they have done in terms of this particular, the explanation of this particular rule. All right, so there's lots of other action. And, of course, in the 100-meter men, I'm getting a lot of messages about this one. The 100-meter men, and oh gosh, I mean, Oblique Seville, so close, a very tight race. So sorry about that. We had a break in the stream just now due to a power outage, and apologies for that. But we're talking about the 100-meter men and the Fred Curley being out cold. Of course, the photo finish somehow is not available on the site anymore, but that's what the photo looks like. Of course, Lyles crossing the line first, and been getting a lot of these images and people saying, oh, we should protest. I know, we're here in Kingston, can't do any of that this time around, but it's very tight, extremely tight, the finish there. In fact, it's the tightest we've seen for a race of this kind, you know, at the finals, at the World Championships, to determine the medals. It's been a long time since we've seen anything like this. So, the results, look at it here. Lyles winning with 9.83 seconds, a world lead. Letsile Tebogo of Botswana was credited with second at 9.88 seconds. The same time to the 100 for Zharnel Hughes of Great Britain, 9.88 seconds. And also the same 9.88 seconds, Oblique Seville. Now they've resolved it to the 1,000th of a second. So they've gone down to 1,000th of a second, and so Tebogo's term is 9.873, and then of course Zharnel Hughes was given 9.874, and of course Seville was given 9.877, and it's kind of a unfortunate situation. I mean, can you imagine you're too late to the finish line by 3 4 thousandths of a second. So between second and fourth is 4 thousandths of a second. That, I mean, you can't even fathom that. That's why you have to measure it. But I'm not really in agreement with using a thousandth of a second to resolve medals. In fact, you know, placings, I can see being used to determine placings to advance to the next round. But medals, I don't think we should be using that to determine medals at all. Yeah, it's big. It's a bit tough for Seville, and of course, we just have to live with that. It would be good to see the photo finish, maybe from the other angle as well, but of course that may not be the case. So we won't be able to see that. I'm not seeing it online. So we just have to take it as it is, unfortunately. So no medals for Jamaica in the 100-meter men, and good try by Seville. And of course Ryiem Forde was also in that race, and he ran 10.08. And this is a widespread really of the medals, NACAC to Africa to Europe. Then of course you can see the NACAC presence again in 4th and 5th place. Christian Coleman, 5th, 9.92. Interesting times and interesting results so far. So we have quite a bit of action tomorrow, and we'll be looking at some of those things. Let me see if there's anything else in the chat here. Somebody says, I don't understand based on images I saw that they mean radar breaking of a plane, loss of all foot contact. Also, this was in relation to the long jump for Ackelia Smith. Yeah, there's not much we can do about that. Of course, I think they haven't given, unfortunately, up to now, they have not given an official response to the protest, as far as I know. And that would be a rather unfortunate situation that they've not up to this point. But anyway, we move on because we have to. It's 9 days competition. We've only gone 2, and much more to come, and we have to indeed move forward. So tomorrow, day 3 action is involved as well. 40-meter hurdles, women's heats, and the 40-meter men's semi-final. Some good performances from the Jamaicans there. And the triple jump men's finals, we're looking for that one. Jalen Hibbert. The semi-finals for the men. Oh, we never talked about this. The hurdles. The hurdles with Rashid Broadbell. Very unfortunate situation. But the key thing for hurdles is that you must clear the hurdle. And in fact, the rules are almost setting you up to, if you knock down the hurdle, you're going to get disqualified. So, no Rashid Broadbell in the men's semi-final. It's very unfortunate. Big loss for him and for all of us. And we can all agree with him on this particular loss. So, we continue from there. The discus men's final and the 100-meter women's semi-final and final are there. The sprint hurdles, 110 hurdles finals is right before the women's 100-meter finals. So this is a packed day, afternoon session tomorrow for day 3, and we're really looking forward to all that action and all that will take place tomorrow. So, of course, we'll be here looking back at some of those things and really, as we've committed to talking about the things that nobody else wants to talk about. Thank you for joining us on Technique Talk, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow right here at 6 o'clock. Enjoy the rest of your